What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. For this week's video, I'm gonna be taking you through the top 4 exercises that you guys struggle with feeling in your glutes. Let's jump into it. There's gonna be a lot of form breakdown and we're gonna get you feeling all these movements in your glutes by the end of this video. Trust me. Let's go. All right, guys, exercise number 1 is gonna be RDLs. Now, already tip number 1, I would swap out your barbell RDLs for dumbbell RDLs if you struggle with feeling barbell RDLs in your glutes. Sometimes it's good to go from barbell movements back to dumbbell movements if you really need to like hone in on your form and like have that kind of like free motion of the dumbbells. You know what I mean? Both are great movements. Both I feel in my glutes now that I'm like my RDL form is perfected. But if you struggle with feeling a compound movement in your glutes, like such a staple glute movement, I suggest going from barbell to dumbbell to start with and perfect your dumbbell RDLs, and then we can move on to the barbell RDLs, because the barbell just happens to be more of a stiff movement. You know what I mean? You can't like move it to the side like you can with dumbbells, you know, kind of adjust yourself as much as you can with dumbbells. Okay, so tip number 1, already from barbell RDLs, go to dumbbell. I wouldn't say digress. That's what you see how I'm not saying digress. We're not digressing, okay? Because there's no digression. Dumbbell RDLs are just as great as barbell RDLs and like vice versa. But like when it comes to honing in on form, I suggest dumbbell RDLs first and perfect that first, then barbell RDLs. Now that I've got that out of the way, most people when I see do RDLs that really struggle with feeling it in their glutes and they feel it a lot in their lower back are doing things like this. What do we see that's wrong with that? I'm going all the way down to my ankles / toes, which is way too far for a glute focused RDL. And then I'm coming up way too fast. There's no like slow motion, no slow time under tension. You know what I mean? Like really honing in, having time to like mind muscle connect to my glutes and hams. So I'm just like kind of like rushing through the movement. I'm going all the way down to my toes. I'm locking out my knees at the top and like squeezing my glutes forward as if I'm doing like a air hip thrust. So these are things like already that we do not want to be doing, and why you could be feeling pain in your lower back instead of actually just feeling all the movement in your glutes and hams. So for a glute focused RDL, to feel it in your glutes, it needs to be a glute focused RDL. Let's get that out of the way. It needs to be a glute focused RDL, not just any RDL, because any RDL then we could be doing a hamstring focused RDL, which is where you would be going past your knees all the way down pretty much to your ankles to really get the full stretch in your hamstrings and not necessarily like more focused on your glutes. So a hamstring RDL would be this one, where you're kind of like going all the way down and like I just feel it super stretched here, and it's not as much of as an exaggerated bend at the knee. Whereas a glute focused RDL is just dipping below the knees. Okay, cue number 1, you're just dipping below your shins. You're gonna stop here and you're gonna come up. Cue number 2, you're going to engage your core to keep your spine neutral. What does engage your core mean? It means if someone's gonna come and tickle you or like, you know, punch you here, you would tighten your core, right? Core tight the entire time to prevent your spine from curving, your lower back from curving or from arching, okay? Because we're not like arching like this, okay? We're not arching like that, and we're not curving like this, okay? So to prevent both those scenarios, tighten your core to keep your spine neutral and tight, because your core is your entire front and rear here to keep it all tight and neutral. Cue number 3, time under tension. Slow down the movement, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Key number 4, do not lock out your joints. Do not lock out your knees. That's how you're gonna lose the tension in your glutes in the movement. When you lock out your knees at the top, okay, so this is a full lockout. I'm talking like an exaggerated lockout, which I see some of you guys do. That is going to not only cause injury in your shins, okay, but you're gonna lose the tension completely in your glutes, and you're gonna wonder why when I came up from the movement, I just don't feel any like of that burn or that like tightness in my glute, that stretch in my glute. It's because you locked out your joints. You wanna almost come close to locking out without actually locking out, if that makes sense. So you're gonna come down and then you're gonna come up. Once you feel that kind of like really tightness here, like you see how my glutes are like rock hard right now, like super tight, but my knees have the slightest bend, not an exaggerated bend, but the slightest bend at the top, because I'm not gonna lock out my joints. Cue number 5, you're going to push your hips all the way back in a glute focused RDL. That is so key. Hips all the way back. When you're thinking glute focused RDL, think hips all the way back. Pushing door open with your glutes, okay? So what does that mean? Hips all the way back, as if there's a door behind me and I wanna push it open. You're gonna go down. As soon as you feel, which I do right now, because it's like proper form, As soon as you feel that full stretch in your hammies and you can't possibly stretch it anymore, and you feel that full stretch in your glutes, like they feel fully stretched out because you have an exaggerated bend at the knee and you've dipped below your shins, that's when you're gonna come up from the RDL. Like just that without any weights, I felt that all in my glutes. All of that in my glutes. And then cue number 6, which I said in cue number 5, exaggerated bend at the knee. Glute focused RDL. Again, when you think glute focused RDL, that's another key thing I want you to think of when you think of it. Exaggerated bend at the knee, okay? So you're really, really, really kind of like bending the knees here. You see that, right? That full bend. You want to do that because when you do the exaggerated bend at the knee, your hips are going to go further back and you're going to get that full stretch in your glutes, and then you're going to come up, okay? So I listed about 6 to 8 cues there, and that I promise you will help you fix your form on glute focused RDLs, and you will feel it more in your glutes. Bonus tip, take your shoes off if you're wearing the wrong shoes, because having a flat foot to the ground allows your toes all to like lock in and like grip the floor properly, and it allows you to drive through your heels properly too. That's actually a really important cue that I missed, guys. You need to drive the motion through your heel. Do not drive RDLs through your toes. When I say drive, I mean like do not shift your weight of your body through your toes. Always shift your weight and push the movement through your heels. Because when you push through your heels on leg day, that automatically means like you are more focused on your glutes and hammies. So drive through your heels, drive through your heels. On leg day, when it's like especially a glute focused leg day, drive through your heels. When it's a quad focused leg day, drive through your toes. Meaning shift your weight more on your toes on quads, shift your weight more on your heels on glutes, and drive through it. Like really like mind muscle connect, like you're pushing through your heels, and that's gonna stretch all the way up your hammies, all the way up your glutes, and that's why it's more of a glute focused, hammy focused drive. Okay, now let's run through the movement. Slowing down, so time under tension on the way down here. Exaggerated bend at the knee, push the door open with your glutes, dip just below your shins here. Once I feel that full stretch, spine completely neutral, neck completely neutral. Once I feel that full stretch, I'm gonna come up without locking my knees, okay? Full tension here in the glutes. Again, all the way down, spine and neck completely neutral, driving through my heels, and then all the way up. Now let's show you with the weight. Exercise number 2, it's one that you guys wouldn't really expect to not feel in your glutes because this is like the holy grail glute exercise. So you guys might be taken aback by this one, but it's hip thrusts. You'd be surprised. A lot of beginners, including myself when I was a beginner years ago, hip thrusts were one of the more difficult ones for me to feel in my glutes because I'd always be like, why do I feel it in my lower back? Like, this is like weird. This is supposed to be like the holy grail glute exercise, right? So like you'd be shocked at how many people don't really feel hip thrusts in their glutes. And so we're gonna go through a really in-depth form breakdown on this so that you guys are demons at hip thrusts and you will always feel in your glutes moving forward after this. So let's go. I'm gonna start with the bar. I'm gonna like literally talk through it with just the bar, so it's really kind of easy to get all the angles because sometimes when we like load on the plates, it's hard to see. So first, get a barbell pad to cushion and protect your pelvis area here, or roll up a mat if you don't have a barbell pad at your gym. Like your gyms usually have like those yoga mats that you can kind of like roll over a bunch of times and like put it here and then place the barbell on top of the mat so it protects your whole like pelvic area, or otherwise you're gonna get bruises on your bones, okay? We cannot hip thrusts and get bruises on our pelvic bones here, okay? With hip thrusts, the first and foremost thing we have to get out of the way, and I think this is the #1 key thing ever for hip thrusts, is fix your bench, okay? Fix your bench height. I feel like everybody thinks you need to use the standard gym benches that are by the dumbbell area and like that's gonna work for all heights, like 6-footers, 5-footers. No, okay, based on your height, based on the length of your femurs, like just based on your leg length, your torso length, everything, you need to get a bench that suits your height and your measurements specifically. So what I opt for instead of the benches that are in the dumbbell area is I actually prefer stackables. If your gym has stackables, which I think most commercial gyms have, so if you're in a commercial gym, like an LA Fitness, a Crunch, a Good Life Fitness, whatever, an Anytime Fitness, all those gyms should have stackables available to you, which look kind of like this. They all look a little bit different, but basically it's these things that you can stack It's like the step-up boxes, usually in the yoga room studios or like, you know, that free space studios in your gyms. And you're gonna stack these until you get just the right height for your height, if that makes sense. For me, it's 5 of these boxes and then I put the long piece on top. And to me, that allows me to hit a full 90-degree tabletop position at the top. So you need to fix your bench height to be able to hit 90 degrees when you come up in a hip thrust. If you're not hitting 90 degrees, that either means your bench is too high or too low. And most times for us girls, because we're not always, like I feel like majority of girls are not super tall, we're usually super short. Majority of the time those benches are too tall for us, especially if you're anywhere from 5 foot to 5'5" girl. I'm 5'2", so I need a lower bench, or I need specifically the stackables to really accommodate my height in the gym. Because gyms aren't very short goal friendly. You want your back of your shoulder blades / your upper back on the back of the bench. That's where you should be leaning on your bench. The back of your shoulder blades / your upper back. You're gonna have your toes, you're gonna move your legs out like this, about shoulder width apart, toes slightly pointed outwards. And then you're gonna come up, and you see that how I'm in a 90-degree tabletop position? That means that my height of my bench is a good height, okay? So 5 stackables works for me because I'm able to hit 90 degrees. I can see myself in the mirror here actually. It's a perfect 90-degree position. And then that means that my glutes are getting the full impact of the movement. Now that we have the bench thing out of the way, fix your bench, get the perfect height for you. Already that's gonna make a difference in your form. When you're hip thrusting and you're below 90 degrees, that means that the bench is too high on your back. Like it's too tall of a bench for you. So you need to get a shorter bench. That means that you'd be coming something like, I can't really do it because it's the perfect height bench, but you're basically, if your legs are kind of like slanted like this and they're not hitting 90 degrees when you come up on a hip thrust, and you kind of see that your quads are tilting towards the ground like that, that means the bench is way too high for you. If you are going above 90 degrees, that means the bench is way too short for you. Like you're on something way too short and you're like going way past like 90 degrees. And yeah, so going below 90 degrees though is usually the most common issue, and that's why people feel it in their quads. You should not be feeling hip thrust in your quads. That means your bench is way too high and you're not hitting 90 degrees. Cue number 2 for this, guys, you wanna keep your hips tucked. So a lot of times when people are like, I feel a lot of pain in my lower back when I do hip thrust, why is that? And you're not feeling it in your glutes. It could be because you're not engaging your core enough. And when you don't engage your core enough, your back starts to arch because your spine is overcompensating for the movement. And that's how you get your lower back pain. And then it takes away from the mind muscle connection in your glutes. So engaged core, hips tucked to keep a neutral spine and a really neutral back throughout the movement, making it all the impact is being taken in your glutes for this movement. Okay, cool. So I'll show you the wrong way. So when people are like, you see this arch here? You see this like little bend here? You see that? How I'm coming down like this? Do you see this arch even when I come down like this? I feel like a lot of people do that when they come down. So like I'm arching on the way down and it's causing an arch on the way up. And then when I come down, I'm like letting my hips dip. That's because my hips aren't tucked. So why you look like this, it's because you need to tuck your hips. Do you see that? I tucked my hips, so I was like this. I was like this. Tuck your hips, okay? When you tuck your hips, everything goes down and up. See that? That difference? You see that difference? There's no arch in my back, and all my glutes you can see are taking the impact now. Because I'm going down with the movement here, my torso, everything's in line, my entire spine is neutral because my hips are tucked, and then I'm going up. Again, the reason why that's also not just because my hips are tucked, but because my core is engaged. I'm engaging my core as if someone's gonna come tickle me. It's so completely tight throughout the entire movement, allowing my glutes to take all the impact of the hip thrust. And cue number 3, drive through your heels. I think that's gonna be the number one thing I'm gonna say for all these exercises basically today. A lot of glute focused exercises, you need to drive through your heels. I would say all of the glute focused exercises, you need to drive through your heels. Because again, when you drive through your toes in a movement, it's equals quads. So driving through your toes equals quads, driving through your heels equals glutes. So in this movement, I'm not shifting my weight in a hip thrust to my toes. No, because then that's how you're gonna kind of like, see like you're getting a little bit of lift here off the ground from your heel because I'm kind of shifting the movement into my toes, hence I'm feeling it in my quads. Shift the weight onto your heel, drive through your heel so that it goes through your hams to your glutes.
See, I can even lift my toes off the ground because that whole movement was driven through my heels.
I promise if you guys follow all these cues for hip thrusts, there will be a huge difference in you feeling it in your glutes and your lower back pain will go away. So follow all these steps to improve your hip thrusts and I promise you will feel it in your glutes. Exercise number 3, guys. It is the most hated exercise on the face of the planet, I feel like. It's Bulgarians, not Bulgarians from Bulgaria. We love you guys. I'm talking about Bulgarian split squats. Glute focused Bulgarian split squats, okay? I know we all don't love Bulgarian split squats, but let's be for real. It's one of the best exercises, unilateral movement, specifically unilateral meaning one leg at a time movement for glute growth and overall leg growth. So quads, hammies, glutes. It's a really, really amazing power movement, strength movement, hypertrophy movement. It is like literally a really, really good leg day exercise that we all just dread. Okay, so Bulgarians. I know we've all been there, including myself. I've been here with all these exercises before where I'm like new in the gym and I'm like, I can't feel any of these in my glutes, okay? This one was one of the longest ones that took me a while to feel in my glutes. First of all, let me show you a quad focused Bulgarian split squat. Close to the bench, okay? Foot up here, your body is closer to the bench. You're gonna come down, up and down like an elevator motion, okay? So literally think like you're on an elevator and it just goes up and down straight. Your torso is completely straight, literally upright, okay? So elevator, up, down, torso, upright, and body closer to the bench. All those 3 are quad-focused Bulgarian split squats. Closer to the bench, upright torso, up and down movement like an elevator. That's gonna be quad-focused. Now, if you're doing all those 3 things, it's not that it's wrong form, it's great form, it's just you're doing a quad-focused Bulgarian split squat and that's probably why you can't feel it in your glutes. You're just doing the quad-focused version, or you're doing hints of those 3 things that I mentioned, and that's why you're feeling it more in your quads. You need to do all these 3 things to make it more glute focused. So you're gonna step further away from the bench, okay? You're not gonna be as close. You're gonna be a little bit further away from the bench, okay? Leg up, okay? Adjust as you need to. Your torso is gonna lean forward. This is gonna be probably the most key thing for Bulgarian split squats for feeling it more in your glutes. The torso is not upright anymore like this. You're actually gonna have your whole torso leaning forward, diagonal. The lean forward automatically makes it more of a glute focused movement. Then you're gonna go up and down like an escalator. So at the mall, the elevator is up and down straight, the escalator is on a diagonal. So think escalator motion, okay? And that's gonna be a glute focused Bulgarian split squat. So like that, okay? That escalator motion allows you to get a more full stretch in your glutes and in your hams through this movement. So like that. And also that bend, like the bend at your torso, that lean forward in your torso shifts the weight of a quad focused Bulgarian split squat into a glute focused Bulgarian split squat. That's the difference. I'll show the other leg. Okay, now my trick of the day. What you're gonna do, you're gonna sit to get the perfect glute stance on a Bulgarian split squat. So the perfect glute stance. You're gonna sit here on your back leg. That's not the working leg, it's the supporting leg. You're gonna completely stretch out your working leg, completely extend your knee and stretch it out. You're gonna lean forward like this. That's gonna be the perfect glute stance. Look, diagonal, lean forward. Okay? All right, guys, this is not really a bonus tip because I've been saying it throughout the whole workout. What am I gonna say? Take a guess. It's like Dora the Explorer. You know what it's like? Can you tell me where the map is? Drive through your heels. If you said that, then you're right. Yes, drive through your heels. In Bulgarian split squats, also drive through your heels. If you're driving through your toes, you're gonna feel the movement more in your quads. Drive through your heels in the movement. If that means you have to take off your shoes to really like be engaged with the floor, like your foot flat on the floor, then take off your shoes by all means to feel it better in your glutes so you can drive through your heels in the movement. Exercise number 4, last exercise of the day, is going to be glute kickbacks. We're gonna finish off this why you don't feel these exercises in your glutes video with an isolation movement. I feel like kickbacks, I chose that as the isolation movement of today's form breakdown guide because I think this one's the most picked out isolation glute movement out of all of them, where you guys tend to be like, I can't feel this one specifically in my glutes. And I get why. It's actually more of a technical movement than we think. Like glute kickbacks seem so simple, which they are in the grand scheme of things, but it's also not. Just because it is a simple exercise doesn't mean that the form is just like, you can get it right away. Like honestly, it takes time to get this form down, and it takes a lot of like slowing down the movement, lowering the weight, putting your ego aside, just dropping the weight lower and really honing in on your form before you start slowly building up that weight so that your form is perfect and you can feel it in your glutes. First, I'm gonna show without the cable, okay? We've all done this at one point, or we are currently still doing this, where we are doing this. We're like driving the knee in and doing some donkey kick motion, okay? I used to do it all the time. I don't delete any of my posts on Instagram. You can scroll all the way back down to when I was more of a beginner in the gym. And I would do the donkey kick, arched back kickbacks all the time. And I was always wondering why my lower back hurt because I was arching so much. I was like, why is my lower back hurting so much? And why do I not feel like this tension in my glutes? Like, why are my glutes not shelving? Like, you know, because these are like kind of like the shelf exercises where you get that like glute shelf here at the top, this and like the 45-degree hyperextension. So these are like the shelf isolation movements. I was like, why are my glutes not shelving the way they should be? Because I was doing donkey kicks with a lot of motion and also arching my back. And although donkey kicks may look better on video or for angles and stuff like that on the IG and stuff, it is not the proper way to do cable kickbacks, okay? So the proper form, very, very still. Your body should be very still. There should be not an exaggerated bend at your torso like this. No donkey kick bend at your torso, wrong. You're actually gonna be super, for the most part, pretty much upright with a slight bend here, stepping away from the cable machine and kind of away enough that you're kind of fully extending your arm. Okay, that's how far you should kind of be away from the cable machine. Because when you're this far away, now you have the proper like range of motion going on. So you're going to kick back without arching your back. Like there's no arch in my back there. And you're gonna slowly release it inwards, and you're gonna come just past your stable leg here. Your working leg's gonna come just past, like inwards a little bit to really like get that full range of motion. And then you're gonna kick all the way back. Okay, so I'm not donkey kicking. You see how my leg is straight? I'm gonna show it like this. Okay, it's the slightest bend, but it's not like a donkey kick bend. It's like literally, it's pretty much like a full straight leg. And the key for this is we're not kicking back like this. Okay, we're kicking back slightly outwards at a 180 degrees, I guess, like a 180 degree kickback. So it's gonna be like this. Okay, so I'm slightly outwards, kicking outwards. And that's gonna really target here. I don't have hips, okay? And glute kickbacks really help with giving that illusion that you have more fullness around your hips, if that makes sense, because I don't have hips, right? But I tend to have more fullness here than I ever did before when I wasn't doing like kickbacks properly or working on my glute medius. To grow your glute medius, it's a lot of unilateral exercises like Bulgarian split squats, reverse lunges, lunges of any sort, like curtsy lunges, and also glute kickbacks. All these things kind of really target your glute medius and then gives you that fullness here. So why we're kicking a little bit at a 180 degrees outwards is because you're targeting not only your shelf, but you're targeting your glute medius and building the muscle around your medius area, which is the side glute. So slight bend here at your torso, not an exaggerated bend, straight leg for the most part, the slightest bend at the knee. Okay, and you're kicking 180 degrees back. Okay, so I'm not arching my back and I'm not doing a donkey kick. Those are wrong. And then last thing, guys, flexed foot, so not a pointed toe. You're not doing kickbacks with a pointed toe like this. Flex your foot like this, so no pointed toe. The more you flex your toe for any sort of kickback movement, the more you feel it in your glutes. Flexing your toe always associates with more of like a glute feeling. Yes. I promise, get all these form tips down for your glute kickbacks, you will feel it in your glutes and you will stop feeling it in your lower back. And also, again, engage your core. Any exercise you're ever doing in life, doesn't matter if it's a bicep curl, engage your core. Make it tight. It also helps protect your spine and prevent arching in your back. So engage your core to prevent the arching, okay? Now, let's do the full movement. All right, guys, that concludes today's video on the top 4 exercises that you guys struggle with feeling in your glutes. I did the full form breakdown, and I really hope it helps you guys with those movements and feeling it more in your glutes. I actually promise that if you implement those things regularly and make those changes in your form for those specific movements, you will end up feeling these movements in your glutes, and you'll feel less pain in your lower back, you'll feel less pain in your knees, whatever it might be. But implement all those things, and it takes time. Stay consistent with it, stay gradual. You have to really hone in and think about it every single time you do it, because you need to break bad habits or whatever it might be. But you implement those things, and I promise your form will improve, and you will feel it in your glutes, and your glutes will become massively huge or they'll just become stronger. But yes, I hope you guys really enjoyed the video, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.